The modern financial world is an absolute circus, and you are driving right past the clowns every single morning. There are two distinct types of people navigating this ridiculous economy, and their parking habits tell you everything you need to know. First, you have the Raccoon. The Raccoon rolls up in a brand new, heavily leased luxury SUV. The kind that smells like fresh leather and terrible financial decisions. They step out wearing an $800 smartwatch, aggressively buzzing with useless notifications while sipping a $7 artisanal latte that took 20 minutes to make. From the outside, they look like they have completely crushed the matrix. They look like the poster child for modern success, ready to post a motivational quote on social media. But reality, as always, is far more cynical. The Raccoon is exhausted. They are participating in what I like to call the trash panda hustle. They are surviving on financial garbage, scraping by on credit limits, minimum payments, and the desperate hope that next year's bonus will finally fix their life. They are exactly one missed paycheck away from sleeping in that shiny, depreciating ego mobile. The system loves the Raccoon. The system needs the Raccoon. A person drowning in lifestyle debt is a highly compliant worker, someone who will never, ever talk back to their boss because they simply cannot afford to. Then, parked just a few spots down, usually in the back where the paint won't get scratched, is the Capybara. The Capybara rolls out of a 2015 Honda Civic, a piece of machinery that will probably outlive us all. They are wearing a plain faded hoodie, zero logos, zero flex, no designer belts, no flashy sneakers, no desperate cries for validation. Absolutely nothing to signal to the world that they matter. To the untrained eye, the Capybara looks like an absolute nobody. They look average, unbothered, and completely invisible to the superficial hierarchy of the office. What the Raccoon does not know, what the entire corporate food chain does not know, is that the Capybara is sitting quietly on a $2 million net worth. Their mortgage is fully paid off. Their index funds are quietly compounding in the background, working significantly harder than they ever will. They are entirely, unequivocally bulletproof. The Capybara could walk into their manager's office at 2 in the afternoon on a random Tuesday, flip the desk, and never work another day in their life. They do not need the job. They just show up because they haven't found a hobby they like better yet. These two archetypes represent the greatest illusion of our time. One of these people looks incredibly wealthy, and the other person actually is. In the modern economy, those two things are almost never the same. Society has sold you a massive, highly profitable lie. We have been conditioned to believe that wealth is loud, that it comes with bottle service, leased German engineering, and a constant need to prove your existence to strangers. But visible wealth is a trap. It is a highly engineered psychological cage designed to keep high-income earners completely broke, constantly chasing the next shiny object, and permanently tethered to the corporate machine. It is time to stop playing a game that was rigged against you from the start. Welcome to 1% Invests. My name is Carl. Today, we are ripping apart the visibility trap. We are not talking about clipping coupons or living like a monk. We are talking about the massive, undeniable return on investment of being entirely unbothered. We are going to break down exactly why looking poor is the most aggressive anti-establishment wealth hack in the game. To understand exactly why the Raccoon is bleeding out financially, you have to understand a little economic concept called conspicuous consumption. The system rigged the game a long time ago. Sociologists figured out over a century ago that people do not just buy products for their actual utility. If they did, the entire luxury goods market would collapse overnight. Instead, the system realized that to keep you spending, they had to sell you status. They had to sell you a fake narrative. When you buy the luxury watch or the designer jacket, you are not buying a way to tell time or a way to stay warm. You are buying a carefully constructed illusion designed in a corporate boardroom, specifically to separate you from your future wealth. The Raccoon is hopelessly, predictably addicted to this visibility game. They operate under the tragic, exhausting delusion that if it is not documented on the internet, if their coworkers cannot see it, touch it, or quietly envy it, then their success simply does not exist. It is a pathetic, endless treadmill, but the math behind this addiction is where the real tragedy lies. Every single dollar burned on flexing, every dollar spent trying to convince strangers that you are wealthy, is a soldier permanently removed from your compound interest army. It is capital that will never, ever fight for your freedom. Let us look at a perfect modern example: the tech status trap. The Raccoon is terrified of looking obsolete. So, every 2 years, like absolute clockwork, they march into the glass-walled store and finance the maxed-out $1,500 flagship phone, along with the newest $800 ultra smartwatch. Because heaven forbid someone sees a green text bubble or an outdated bezel on their wrist. When you run the numbers, staying on the bleeding edge of consumer tech costs the Raccoon about $1,150 a year. The Capybara, on the other hand, just wants something that actually works. They buy a solid mid-range $800 setup, and they easily, quietly keep it running for 4 years. Their annualized cost? A mere $200. Now, the Raccoon will smugly point out that the difference is only $950 a year. They think it is pocket change. They think it is just the standard cost of doing business in modern society, but the Raccoon is terrible at math. If that $950 difference was quietly invested at an 8% return over 30 years, the Raccoon just sacrificed $116,000 of future wealth. Let that sink in. They literally gave up a 6-figure portfolio, a massive chunk of their eventual freedom, just to have 3 extra camera lenses so they can take slightly sharper photos of their overpriced Sunday brunch. It is a masterclass in financial self-destruction. But the trap gets significantly deeper and much more expensive when we examine the aesthetic lifestyle tax. The Raccoon decides they need to rent a $3,500 a month high-rise apartment downtown. Why? Is the plumbing better? Absolutely not. They rent it because the floor-to-ceiling windows look incredible in the background of a heavily filtered video. It artificially validates their supposed success to an audience of people who are not even paying attention to them. The Capybara is completely, utterly immune to this social pressure. They do not care about the aesthetic, and they do not care what the barista thinks of their zip code. They rent a quiet, comfortable place 15 minutes away for $2,200 a month. No rooftop infinity pool, no pretentious lobby. Just peace, quiet, and cheap rent. The Raccoon is paying a $1,300 premium every single month, strictly for an aesthetic. It is a vanity tax, plain and simple. If the Capybara takes that $1,300 difference and invests it in the market at that same 8%, in just 10 years, it becomes $238,000. The Raccoon is out here hustling, stressing, and grinding, literally funding their landlord's early retirement, all to buy fake clout on the internet. They are paying $250,000 for a nice view and a temporary feeling of superiority. The real danger of the visibility trap is not just that you are torching your investment capital, though watching someone actively set their financial future on fire is always a tragic spectacle. The much more sinister problem is that looking rich puts a massive glowing target directly on your back. We call this the wealth tax, when you roll up to the world draped in loud luxury, aggressively broadcasting your supposed high net worth. Society stops treating you like a person. They start treating you like a walking, talking ATM. It is an entirely predictable, exhausting phenomenon. You hire a contractor to fix your roof and they see the leased German engineering sitting in the driveway. The quote magically doubles. You walk into a dealership wearing the $800 watch, the salesman suddenly loses the ability to negotiate. You go out to dinner with friends, and because you have been flexing on social media all week, there is a quiet, uncomfortable expectation that you are going to pick up the tab. And the tax gets worse. In the digital age, broadcasting your assets makes you absolute chum for cybercriminals. You become the prime target for highly sophisticated scams, whaling attacks, designed specifically to separate loud, arrogant targets from their money. The Raccoon spends all their time trying to get noticed, and unfortunately, they succeed. They get noticed by exactly the wrong people. The Capybara, meanwhile, dodges this entire circus through the absolute genius of stealth wealth. Because absolutely nobody knows what is sitting in their brokerage account, they operate from a position of absolute invisible power. When the Capybara negotiates, they get the actual market rate, not the inflated vanity price. Their relationships are entirely authentic. Nobody is hanging around the Capybara expecting a handout or a free dinner because the Capybara looks like they might need to split a coupon. It is the ultimate social filter. 0 leeches, 0 expectations, and 0 targets on their back. And this brings us to the biggest, most brutal financial divider of all. The loud luxury compounder. Let us look at what happens when our two archetypes finally get that long-awaited promotion at work. The Raccoon gets the bump in salary and immediately feels the desperate need to let the entire office know they have moved up the corporate food chain. They march straight to the dealership and finance a $75,000 Ego Mobile. They sign a terrible loan, completely convinced that the leather seats and the shiny hood ornament are a reflection of their self-worth. The capybara gets the exact same promotion, but instead of throwing a financial parade, they go out and buy a reliable $25,000 used tank in cash. It is clean, it runs perfectly, and it does not scream for attention. The capybara then takes that $50,000 difference, the money the raccoon just borrowed to impress people they secretly hate, and drops it straight into a low-cost index fund. Fast forward 20 years, assuming a completely average 8% return. The capybara's $50,000 decision has quietly grown to over $230,000. And the raccoon's luxury SUV, that $75,000 status symbol, depreciated to absolute zero and was crushed into a scrap metal cube a decade ago. The raccoon has fallen completely victim to hedonic adaptation. This is the cruelest joke of the modern consumer economy. The thrill of the new car, the high-rise apartment, the expensive watch, it fades in a matter of weeks. The excitement evaporates, and the luxury simply becomes the new, boring normal. But the financial hemorrhage, the massive monthly payments, the crushing interest rates, the lost opportunity cost, that compounds forever. The capybara understands that true wealth is not about chasing a dopamine hit that wears off by next Tuesday. Their stealth approach, their quiet, steadily growing net worth, provides a baseline level of permanent psychological armor. They do not need the shiny hood ornament to feel secure, because their security is mathematically guaranteed. So, how exactly do you rip off the raccoon mask and finally cross the divide? How do you stop hemorrhaging cash to impress people you secretly despise and actually become the capybara? It requires a total, ruthless teardown of everything you think you know about money. Wealth researchers use a very specific, entirely brutal mathematical framework to determine if you are actually building net worth, or just aggressively destroying it through lifestyle inflation. It is a simple, unforgiving formula. You take your current age, multiply it by your pre-tax annual household income, and then divide that number by 10. That is it. No complex algorithms, just basic, undeniable arithmetic. Let us run the numbers. If you are 40 years old and you are making $150,000 a year, your target net worth should be exactly $600,000. Take a long, hard look at your actual bank accounts, your brokerage statements, and your home equity. If you are sitting below that number, I have some terrible news for you. You are the raccoon. You are an underaccumulator of wealth. You are letting your hard-earned income slip right through your fingers, strictly to maintain a fragile facade for the herd. Transitioning into the top 1% requires a fundamental, violent reframe of what success actually means in the modern world. The cultural tide is shifting, and it is leaving the loud consumers entirely behind. The era of massive, gaudy logos, flashy car leases, and VIP table service is completely over. It is nothing but a highly orchestrated scam designed specifically for the broke and the insecure. True, modern social currency, the kind that actually commands respect in rooms that matter, is stealth wealth. Success is no longer defined by what you can buy at a luxury boutique. Success is defined entirely by exactly what you do not have to buy. It is the absolute absence of desperation. The ultimate flex in this ridiculous economy is not a designer belt or a reservation at a restaurant you cannot afford. The ultimate flex is FU money. It is the absolute, unshakable ability to walk away from any table, any negotiation, and any toxic boss at any given moment. It is the ability to sleep 8 solid hours a night, completely undisturbed, because you have absolutely zero bad debt hanging over your head. It is the freedom to take a massive risk on a new business venture, to travel globally without having to beg a middle manager for paid time off, or simply to spend a random Tuesday afternoon reading a book on your couch because you actually bought your own time back. You own your existence. The raccoon cannot do that. The raccoon will be forced to work until they are 70 years old, grinding away in a fluorescent-lit cubicle because their bloated, aesthetic lifestyle demands a constant stream of cash. The capybara, sitting quietly in their paid-off house, driving their faded sedan, can literally stop tomorrow. They have opted entirely out of the circus. They look poor by choice because they understand that looking poor is not a sacrifice. It is a strategic, highly calculated advantage against a system that wants to bleed them dry. The goal was never to impress strangers at a stoplight. The goal was always, and will always be, absolute freedom. It is time to stop playing their game. Stop chasing the shiny, depreciating garbage. Embrace the quiet. Disappear into the background, and let your bank account do the flexing for you.